Yeah, first of all, it's been a great couple of days for our players already, and we're basically just in the middle of things right now. The guys still have a few more things to really enjoy and have fun with over the next couple of days. So that part's been great. I think we're doing well in the practice field. Preparation's going fairly smoothly, and we're about hopefully where we want to be. Hopefully we can finish out the week here and be ready to go at kickoff. And then, yeah, the other thing that's interesting, came here in 2003 or post-2003 season for the 2004 Outback Bowl. And it's my sixth trip back, and we've experienced good and bad on the field, but the one thing that's been really consistent is just how outstanding the experience is for our players, our coaches, all the families that are here. Everybody's in the bowl party. So, bowls are really, I tell our players all the time, there's something it's very special. It's something that's earned. Nobody gives you an opportunity to go play in a bowl game. And every bowl that we've participated in has been extremely significant, and for the most part been first class, and this one's right at the top. That has been consistent going back to 2003. So, we're excited to be here, excited to close out the week, and looking forward to a really tough challenge on Tuesday, playing a great Mississippi State team.
Right. Coach Moorhead? Certainly very appreciative of the Outback Bowl leadership for selecting us to play in this prestigious game. Have been a part of a number of high-level bowl games, and I think this is second to none from the opportunities our kids have had to go to the Tampa Bay Lightning game. Went to Splitsville, did some bowling, had a hospital visit. Going to go to Busch Gardens today, beach day. I mean, it's been unbelievable, not just for the kids, but for the coaches and our families and the entire travel party. And the way the schedule was set up, with us being able to take care of business with meetings and practice in the morning, and then move on to enjoying ourselves in the night. We're all certainly very appreciative of that. And, we've had an unbelievable week thus far, and look to continue to do so. Practice has gone well. Not necessarily sure we were expecting nice weather, but not necessarily maybe temperatures reaching the 80s. But this is going on practice 14, and I think the thing that you have to fight is repping the same plays against the same looks over and over and over again, and making sure the kids are locked in and focused. Certainly the opportunity to compete against a great team from the Big Ten like Iowa under Coach Ferentz's leadership, and they've been the model of consistency and the blueprint for success for a very, very long time, and understand it's going to be an incredibly tough game against a physical, blue-collar, fundamentally sound football team, and I think it's going to be one that's exciting for the fans, and one that our kids are certainly fired up to play in.
Okay, first question. No.
Gentlemen, for both of you, Coach Ferentz first. You want to go to the college football playoffs, I get it, but Plan B coming to the Outback Bowl in Tampa and knowing you're going to play a higher echelon SEC team or a Big Ten team, that isn't a bad deal, is it?
Yeah, it's a little bit like the NFL. The reality is two people are going to play in the Super Bowl out of 32 teams. So, obviously more people play Division I football, but 4 teams are going to be in the playoffs, and there's a lot of good football teams that have been playing and will continue to play, and I think it's certainly the case in this game. And I'll go back, our first experience here was fantastic. After the 2003 experience, I can just tell you from experience that it's a great bowl game on every level. And the biggest thing is you're going to play a really tough, aggressive football team on game day, and that's certainly the case again this year.
Yeah, certainly as a first-year head coach in the SEC, our goals are to win the SEC and compete for a national championship in the college football playoff, and we're able to reach that goal. But this is not a Plan B. This is a Plan A bowl. And we sat down and looked at the opportunities and the opponents and the things that were available for our kids as a reward for achieving an 8-4 record and arguably the toughest conference and division in all of college football. This one was at the top of the list, and once again to be able to play a great team like Iowa in this setting with this bowl structure, our kids couldn't have asked for anything better.
John here.
Coach Moorhead, how much carryover is there from your Penn State offense to the offense you run now, and also how much help is it that you faced Iowa a couple times in the last several years?
Yeah, I think there's a significant amount of carryover. Obviously a lot of things are based on your personnel. We want to be philosophically, our belief is that you want to have your scheme match your personnel, not your personnel match your scheme. So there's some things we've done at Penn State and other places where I've been that maybe not necessarily fit, because of who we have. But I'd say the base foundation and structure are the same. And I'd say there's relative familiarity, having gone against Iowa 2016 and 17 just on the offensive side of the ball. But, like anything, coaches tweak, they change, they make adjustments, and, with a great staff, we're certainly expecting, a challenge like we saw the last 2 years we played.
This is for Kirk. Penn State, Joe constructed one of the most innovative offensive schemes maybe in the last 20 years. Of course, he had personnel that were generational type talents. But how did, especially 2016, but also 17, maybe adjust what you wanted to do defensively and incorporate more of the 4-2-5 package? Was any of that kind of a base on why you decided to do it?
Well, we didn't play defense in 16, so throw that one out the window. That could have been 1,000 yards instead of whatever it was. But we made a better showing certainly the next time out. We competed a lot, I think a lot better. There are some similarities, obviously. There's some differences too, and I think probably the biggest similarity is they both, in my mind, the quarterback was the catalyst. I think that's really obvious right now at Mississippi State. You look at the amount of carries he's had relative to anybody in the conference, not just quarterbacks. He is where everything starts with their offensive football team, and I felt the same way about Penn State. That quarterback's a tremendous player. Now they look different, but both of them are just they're leaders, they're winners, and so that's to me where it all kind of starts. And if you don't have an answer, somewhat of an answer, you're going to be in trouble there.
Coach, you're capping off your 20th season at Iowa, and if you could talk about some of the challenges you faced as a head coach back in 1999 versus some of those challenges in 2018. Of course, a lot's changed with society and how you have to deal with players.
Yeah, the first thing I tell guys that are younger head coaches, Joe's been a head coach before, I said, the bad news is it doesn't get any better or easier as you go along. You think it would. Maybe if I was a little better organized, it would. But, I think it's kind of like distractions for players. It's not a new thing. That goes back from history of mankind, right? So there's always challenges and distractions for players. They may be different now with social media. And I think that's a big part of it, is just figure out what's going to take people off their course. And college athletes, I think there are three main goals. You want them to get their degree, to have a great experience playing the highest level of football they can, and then develop as people, so they're ready to go into the adult world whenever that time comes. So I don't think the goals have ever changed, but obviously the challenges, the distractions that are out there for every athlete, that has changed. So just try to deal with it. I think the other thing is just try to listen to people, watch and listen, and you learn every day if you're paying attention. So from your players, and then obviously other people as well.
Anybody over on this side? All right, this must be
Both of you are Western Pennsylvania Whitfield guys. Collegiate football is mano-a-mano physical. How much of that have you brought to your program at Iowa and Mississippi State?
I think it's one of the funniest things about this game. What are the odds of two guys from Iowa and Mississippi? We probably grew up 15 miles from each other. But in Pittsburgh, we were joking about this earlier. Pittsburgh, if you live on one side of the river, you might as well be in another state or country for that matter. I mean, Pittsburghers are pretty, and I know I certainly was growing up, so like Penn Hills might as well have been in New York, upstate New York. But yeah, I think all of us are products of our environment, certainly, and how we're raised and who impacts you and influences you. And just so happens that my high school coach ended up being the guy I worked for at the University of Pittsburgh in 1980. We have that commonality too, the University of Pittsburgh. And he did a lot to shape my thoughts and beliefs, as did Coach Fry. Everybody you work with, and a lot of times head coaches get mentioned, but some of the assistants you work with influence you an awful lot too. So again, you learn from everybody.
Yeah, I think Western Pennsylvania prides itself in certainly being a blue-collar, roll-up your sleeves, go to work, shut your mouth, and let the production speak for itself type of town. And I think any football program that resonates, because that's what you want to see in your players. And certainly growing up, where my dad worked in the mill for 35 years and worked a bunch of jobs and sent 3 kids through college. I think a lot of the lessons that I've learned, not just from growing up in the city of Pittsburgh, but playing high school football there. For a bunch of great coaches against a bunch of great players, those are lessons that you carry on through life on and off the field.
Next question.
Yeah, Kirk, regarding Amani Hooker and what he's been able to do for you this year in kind of a hybrid role, how instrumental is he in helping your defense be as good as it is?
I think it's kind of two-part. He's done a very nice job, playing basically a nickel or a field backer type position, whatever you want to call it. I'm not even sure what we call it, quite frankly. I guess money or something like that, I don't know. But basically he's our outside linebacker of the field. But I think the other component to that is the fact that Geno Smith has done a good job back at safety, which afforded us that opportunity to play with a little different personnel. And to me, the biggest story there is just the way Geno's emerged. We were counting on Amani to play really well this year. He did a good job a year ago. Made his mistakes as a first-year player, but we were confident he'd be one of our better players and one of our leaders on the defense, which he is. But Geno's, to watch him come along and develop like he has, and both of them are kind of similar in that they're both unrecruited. Kind of wondered why on both those guys, but they really fit the mold of what we're looking for in defensive football players.
Next, right. Coach Moorhead again. You had two players, at least two players, I think, that are projected first rounders, but they decided to play in the game, correct? I mean, what kind of conversations did you have there? And also, just as a follow-up, you're kind of an offensive coach, you have a terrific defense. How did that kind of come about?
Yeah, the first part, the conversations were really limited in scope, and ultimately, I want our players who are in that position to make the best decision for themselves. In the short term and the long term. And if your guy's projected, kind of like the discussions Coach Franklin had with Saquon Barkley, if you can make a decision, like Jeffrey entering the draft early or, not playing in a game or playing in a game, I think you have to make a decision that's best for you personally, and certainly for the, guys to come back and decide that they want to play in their last game in the maroon and white. I think it's a testament to their commitment to the program, but more importantly to their teammates. And we have a team that's incredibly close, great chemistry, and more than anything, I think they want to finish this out for each other. So the second part, the defensive part, yeah, I like giving up 12 points a game and leading the country in scoring defense. It means you have to score less. So I wish we had done that a couple of times this year, but certainly, Coach Hughes, we got a guy I've known for a long time, another Western Pennsylvania guy. I grew up in Oakmont, but for what our defense and our defensive staff has done this year against a very rigorous and explosive offensive schedule, I think it speaks volumes about the game plan, what the coaches have done to put our kids in position to be successful. And most importantly, what they've done to execute that plan.
Anybody over here? Mark?
Coach Moorhead, having been high-level coach in the Big Ten and now in the SEC as a head coach, compare and contrast. What's that league like? What's this league like?
They're more similar than dissimilar. I know that for certain. And, you can split hairs and, compare bowl records or compare, like opponents and things like that. And I think when you get in it's called the transitive properties, that was called, when you start this team beat this team and this team, I mean, you can make the argument for just about anything. But I think that the consistent thing that you see is on a weekly basis in both leagues. There are very few off weeks where you can take a breath and kind of gather yourself, and then, it's literally out of the frying pan and into the fire. You play a team in the western part of our conference, or whether it's crossover in the east or another one in the west, the margin of error is negligible, and you've got to be on top of it every single second, on the field and in recruiting. And I think that's, the biggest lesson I've learned as a first-year head coach in this conference, that there are no off days, there are no off seconds in terms of preparation, competition during the season, and certainly on the recruiting trail as well.
You mentioned recruiting. I think that's interesting. That it feels like it's always more competitive in the SEC than it is the Big Ten, recruiting-wise.
Yeah.
Is that probably a myth?
I mean, at Penn State in the Big Ten, you're evaluating, identifying, and attempting to recruit the best of the country, so I don't think that part of it's different. For me, it's hard to compare just because I didn't sit in this seat. As an assistant, I was responsible for my area and my position, so really didn't have to deal with it in a larger scope. But certainly now in this seat, you get a dose of reality and a quick understanding of what you need to do to be successful, and that's attract great players.
For both coaches, Coach Moorhead first on this. When watching film, who does Iowa remind you of that you played, and who does Mississippi State remind you of that you played, if anybody?
To compartmentalize a little bit, Iowa's offense doesn't, to me, it would be similar to an LSU type, some traditional 21 and 12 personnel groupings, physical offensive line, quarterback that can beat you with his arm, obviously an excellent tight end, and, some game-breaking receivers. So certainly being able to defend the run, the quick game, the quarterback movement stuff. And then defensively, we were actually discussing as an offensive staff, I don't know that there's, one that really sticks out. We see a bunch of 3 down in the conference, not a ton of 4 down. But certainly from a production standpoint, giving up 17 points a game, just over 100 rushing, and I don't even know if it's 300 total yards. Iowa's defense production stacks up with anybody in the country.
Yeah, it's kind of similar there. I mean, with Penn State, obviously the connection there. The scheme is similar. Players are different, that type of thing, but the scheme is somewhat similar. And it's really the same way on defense. Coach Shoup wasn't there when we played Penn State the last 2 years, but I think his imprint was certainly left. I think it's so impressive, and Joe talked about this a little while ago. They've got really good players. Those guys are really well coached, and they execute the defense. So it's hard to find them giving up big plays, easy plays, which that's a sign of a good defense when they make you work for everything, and these guys certainly do that, run or pass.
Right here, in front.
Coach Ferentz, I don't know if you were throwing us off yesterday, but Tristan Wirfs was not for the first team right tackle. Is he good to go to start?
I want to talk about that a little bit, So you guys caused a firestorm there. We rotate guys around practice all the time. So poor Tristan got a call from his mom like 2 hours later after practice, right? She's worried the kid's sick or hurt or whatever. So chalk one up for social media on that one. But yeah, we rotate guys around, and that's really common. We weren't playing games. Maybe Tim was, I don't know. But it wasn't under my direction, that's for sure.
Right back here.
For both coaches, are you guys worried about too much time to prepare at this point?
I think that's always a challenge in bowl games, or any time you have a bye week even. This is obviously a bye week extended. Only right now, bye weeks might be in the middle of the season. Now we've got 12 games of each other.
Right.
So it's like any game, though. It really gets down to what's pertinent, what do you think might be applicable, and then trying to go from there. But yeah, you can overanalyze anything. That's one of the great, probably, I don't know much about anything else, but in coaching, certainly we're all guilty of that sometimes.
Yeah, that's the fear that you run into with all this time. You don't want to suffer paralysis by analysis. You want to do enough to kind of tweak your game plan and do some things that are a little bit different, but at the same time not reinvent the wheel. And I know that's, at least from an offensive standpoint, something that we fall victim to. That boredom is a cardinal sin. That what works, and it's hopefully still going to work in the bowl game. So I think it's striking the balance of doing enough that that's a little bit different than what you'd shown on tape there and here, but at the same time sticking to what you've done that's been successful.
Yeah, Leo.
For both coaches, how hard is it to balance the reward of coming to a bowl game and, hey, we're playing a football game here too?
Experiencing it certainly helps. And our first bowl game, 2001, was like a first-time experience. But even in this game, we've got 70 guys on this trip that were not here 2 years ago. So to put that in perspective, last year we played New York. We were only there for like 3 days. So it was almost like an away trip, a normal away trip. So basically what I'm saying is 70 guys is the first-time experience, handling an entire week. But I think our guys, get the idea. And we want them to enjoy it, certainly. That's a big part of the reward for the players. But they also have to try to, discipline themselves and have some time cut out to keep their focus on the preparation, making sure we're doing what we do. So if we're meeting or practicing, hopefully their focus is on that. Then the rest of the time, hopefully they're enjoying things or relaxing, one of those two things.
Yeah, exactly what Coach said. It's about the ability to compartmentalize and, the way the days are structured. You wake up in the morning, you have breakfast, you position meet, you go to the field and practice, come back as a staff, grade the tape, and then, the players move on, and, the coaches move on to the activities and the fun, and you just want to make sure that the fun part doesn't overtake the football part, that you're striking that delicate balance between preparation and activity.
Mark?
Kirk, do you expect to go much past TJ and Nate Weeding at tight end, and how much flex you guys were heavy 2 tight end sets, a lot, I want to say 40%.
Right.
Do you expect to go to that to drop a lot?
Well, I think common sense would say it probably changed a little bit. You know, one of the objectives offensively is to get your best guys on the field, and I don't mean that in a belittling way to Nate, but, you know, those are judgments we'll make and decisions we'll make. Time and distance, all those things factor into game situations. But all that being said, we're not afraid to have Nate in there. Nate's done a good job, and he's had some history of injuries, but fortunately the last year he's been healthy. I think he does a good job. Made a big play in the bowl game for us last year, and yeah, we have total faith in him. Certainly a different type player than Noah, so, you know, just common sense there.
Who'd be a third? Will there be a third?
Drew Cook would probably be the
Okay.
third guy, yeah. Mhm.
Right over here.
Yeah. Kirk, when you first came to this game, your opposing coach thought your all-pro kicker was a running back. What do you recall? Do you recall that situation, and what did you think when the opposing coach said that?
You know, if memory serves me correctly, I think it was like mid-December. I'm pretty sure I was recruiting, and probably the only mistake there that he made was saying anything about anybody's personnel on the other team, because I don't know what he was doing, but I know mid-December I certainly wasn't thinking about who we were playing on January 1st. So, you know, I mean, I think it was just an honest mistake, and, you know, one of those deals.
Not a lot of hockey in Iowa or Mississippi State. When you went to the Lightning game, were your kids excited about that and seeing fighting is illegal?
A couple of them got to go on the ice and have a little tricycle. I've seen that before. Kind of a little shoot off there, but yeah, I mean, we, you know, certainly. I'm from Pittsburgh. You know, follow the Penguins and certainly will jump on the bandwagon. You know, when they're in the playoffs and making the Stanley Cup run. But I didn't really grow up a huge hockey fan. But just in terms of pure entertainment value, you know, 5-2 going into the third, you know, tied up, and then I didn't even know they did a 3-on-3 shootout. I'm turning around and wondering if it was going to go to overtime. And you know, 6 guys trot out there on the ice, and you know, within 15 seconds the thing was over. So I don't know if the kids enjoyed it. I'm pretty sure they did. But I certainly did. I thought it was an awesome game.
So I'll go back to the Penguins, all right? I'm old enough to know the Hornets, Pittsburgh Hornets. All right? We're going to look at one up, AHL or whatever it was, so it dates me a little bit. But Penguin fan too. But yeah, I think our kids had a great time, certainly. Any big league activity, we don't have a major league sport in our state, which makes it, I think, pretty unique, and that's why college football is probably so popular in our state. But yeah, I think they had a great time. They've had a great time all week.
Back here on the end.
Kirk, a lot of the guys yesterday mentioned you giving them kind of a history lesson about getting to 9 wins and how rare it's been in the program. Just how important is that for them to understand when trying to achieve, I guess, that mark?
I think it's really significant for anybody to understand their heritage and what the tradition is in a program, that type of thing. So, you know, I think winning 8 games is a special thing. It's not easy to do in college football. To Joe's point earlier, you know, our leagues are very competitive. And I would think, at least in my experience, it's different than it was in the 80s. There were some weeks off now. If you think you have one, you're probably going to, you know, find some real undesirable results at the end of the week. So I think that's significant. Certainly to win 9 or to win 10 or, you know, anything above 8 is certainly kind of a landmark deal. So that's a big thing.
Right there.
For both of you guys, how do you think the atmosphere will play into this game? Iowa has been to this bowl game plenty of times, and fans travel well. And then how do you think Mississippi State will travel, and how do you think your guys' fans will kind of influence the atmosphere of the game?
I haven't played at Kinnick, and you know, I've been fortunate in my time as an FBS coach to have competed in a bunch of the, you know, best stadiums in the country. And I don't know if there was an atmosphere ever on that last drive that we had. In that 2-minute drill, we didn't have to use silent games very much in my 2 years at Penn State, but you couldn't hear a thing. And I know it's an incredibly passionate and proud fan base. And, you know, I don't want to speak for Iowa, but I'm anticipating that they're going to travel well like they have historically. And I think the same can be said for Mississippi State's fan base and the cowbells. And, you know, I was indoctrinated to that this year. And I see a lot of similarities between the two schools on a lot of different levels. And certainly the passion and the commitment and the belief of the fan bases is something I think will resonate on game day.
We did round up all the cowbells we could in Iowa City, and had some people coming off the street and what have you, so that'll be a new experience for us. But I think, again, you talk about the Big Ten, SEC, you're talking about great fan bases, enthusiasm, and it should be a great environment. And typically whoever's playing the best will get the advantage from the fan base.
Any more questions? One right there.
Coach Ferentz, 20 years, of course you were in Iowa before, but 20 years as a head coach at the same institution. Any thoughts? Take time to think about that every now and then?
Every now and then, and I'm not getting ready to retire, so I'm not going to get real reflective other, just to say I'm really fortunate. I feel very, very fortunate, and I'll say about every job I've had. I've never had a bad job, going back to teaching at Worcester Academy right out of college. So I've been really fortunate that way, been around great people, and the one thing I can say about 29 years at Iowa, we've been so fortunate. We've had great players to work with. The coaches, whether I was an assistant, now a head coach, great coaches to work with. We've got a great administration. A little known fact, we've had 3 athletic directors since 1970, and I don't think there's anybody close in the country. And that has a lot to do with, I think, it's nice to come into work every day and know what's expected, what the expectations are, the way we're going to do things. So I like myself as being very fortunate that way, and most importantly, again, you're working with good people on a day-to-day basis.
Got time for maybe 1 or 2 more? Very good.
You talked about great people that you worked with. You worked with the great Bill Belichick. Talk about his impact on you and your coaching career.
The first thing I'd say, he was a Hall of Fame coach in Cleveland. In my opinion, that's just one person's opinion. It's not like he just became a great coach.
You had a great staff there. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, we had some interesting days there for sure. But again, he's just one of many that's, I think, really impacted me. How could you not be influenced or impacted by him? And I was fortunate. I got to work with both he and Ted Marchibroda, who was a very veteran coach. Had a lot of wisdom too. So, and unique usually they were connected. Bill's first job was with Ted. Bill coming out of college was making $25 a week and living in the hotel with about 5 of those guys driving him around, and that was his first job. So, but again, I mean, everywhere you turn, you're with good people. Joe's gone through the same thing. That's a great thing I think about our profession.
One more? Here we go.
It's almost kind of polar opposite. So you established a culture at Iowa for the last 20 years. You just got in your first year. How tough is it maybe nowadays to really walk in, establish a culture when everyone wants instant results in 2-3 years, and people are, it's for both of you, by the way.
Yeah. No, I think certainly when 20 years total as an assistant and a head coach, when you have the opportunity and you become a head coach, and you're taking over because the guy before you's not done particularly well, or he's done somewhat well and had an opportunity to move on. And in my case, it's the latter. Coach Mullen did a tremendous job laying the foundation and taking this program to a level it hadn't been before. And I think that's my job as a coach, to try to build off of that. And I think certainly the cultural aspect, as you mentioned, plays a part in that. Discipline, accountability, work ethic, attention to detail, and elevating the team, from a very, very good level, to where we want to go, which is to compete for championships on a yearly basis. So I think, that's a challenge. You're coming in and you're not instilling a culture for someone that hadn't had success that you're looking to build on it. And I'd say that was probably the most difficult aspect. Not difficult, but most somewhat challenging aspect of it.
Good for it.
Maybe the differences between.
Yeah. Well, Coach Fry gave me my first job, and he's the only guy in America that would have interviewed me, let alone hire me, 1981. No, I mean that seriously. It was June. It's a strange deal, but for some reason, he hired me. So I spent 9 years, and so when I had a chance to come back, it was a no-brainer. I wasn't looking for a job. I wasn't even thinking about college football, quite frankly, but that was an opportunity just on a professional level and personal level. It made perfect sense. So, the idea was just come in and do the best we could, and I think a lot of the things were very important to Coach Fry when he took over. We kept those same values and principles, and just tried to keep moving forward.
Thank you, coaches. I'm looking forward to a great game on Tuesday. So good luck to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for everybody being here.
Thank you.
Anybody looking to cover the Busch Gardens media opportunities with the players, it's 3 o'clock at Busch Gardens at the Nairobi game. Make sure you look at the information on your itineraries.
Sarah?